Hey everybody, the first episode of season 2 of Peacemaker just dropped, and I wanted to share my review and thoughts and maybe a few questions that I have about what's going to happen from here going forward and that kind of stuff. So let's get into it. Alright, for those who haven't watched the first episode, I'll say that I highly recommend seeing it. I think it's a good show. I think if you enjoyed the first season, or if you just enjoy this genre, you're going to enjoy it most likely. If you're a James Gunn fan, you're going to enjoy this movie. If you haven't already seen it, and if you haven't ever seen the first season, I highly recommend checking that out because it's a great show. There's a lot of character development that happens in the first season. There are a few things that get changed a little bit by season 2, but not too much. So I highly recommend checking that out, but let's go ahead and get into the spoilers and nitty gritty of the first episode here. So right off the bat, they start with a previously in the DCU, and now the DCU is the new universe for DC. So this is kind of interesting way to put it because they're basically saying, this is what happened. We may not have been present, but like this is what happened previously in the DCU, right? So a lot of people aren't going to like this, I imagine, but I think that this was a really good way to handle this. They retconned the scene at the end of the first season where, at the end of the climax episode, where the Justice League comes down. And so in this show, in the new DCU, they're saying that in this universe, this is how it happened. This is the Justice Gang with Superman and Supergirl. So that's really a cool way to do it, for people. It kind of takes away a little bit of the confusion. There's still some, but he just comes right out and says, look, it's different, okay? That scene is not the same. Now, I did go back and check the first season, and they didn't actually change it in the first season. So it still has the old scene there, which I'm kind of torn on that. In some ways, I feel like maybe they should just go back and change that scene in the old show. But the other part of me says, I don't like it when we just change history. So I do think this is a good way to handle it, though, by adding this to season 2, answers some questions and says, oh, well, where'd those Justice League people go? Well, they weren't there. This is who was there. So I think that's pretty cool. You get the little back and forth that you had with Flash and Aquaman. Now you get that with Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner. So yeah, Hawkgirl, they make fun of, there's this puking joke about Guy Gardner, and Hawkgirl's laughing about it, sort of just like the Flash was like, oh, the rumor about you sleeping with fish is true. It's not a rumor, so that's kind of funny. They just did a little twist on it. And then after that, we get into the episode, and Agee is trying to wake up Chris, Peacemaker, but it's snowing outside, and so he doesn't want to take him out because it's snowing and it's cold, and so he decides that he's going to go into the quantum storage space. So this is an alternate dimension storage. It's like a space between dimensions, and he goes in there and he sees this crazy alien. We still don't know who this alien is, but we know that Chris always says hi, and he doesn't say hi back. So that's kind of, we don't know why. He takes a rat, he throws it in this little trash can looking thing and incinerates it. We don't know what that's about. So that's a big question mark for me. I hope we get an answer to that at some point. I'd like to know who this guy is. Is this a Peacemaker from another planet? Like, I don't know who this is. He's walking around, or he's looking for Agee, and Agee is over here at this door, which looks just like his door, and outside the door you see all these helmets. It's a setup just like he has on the other side of his door. So he's kind of freaking out, like, what the hell is this? And he just randomly decides to put in his own code, the same code he uses to get into this door. And it works, which is pretty wild. So he goes into this house, and there's all this crazy stuff. There's the top trio, like a key to the city. The top trio does it again. That's him, Agee, and this other guy, a superhero that turns out to be his brother. It looks like they're the best team, the best superhero team around in this universe. These guys are doing all the things. They're saving all the people and killing all the big monsters and stuff. The Rainbow Monster. They saved Gotham from somebody. All kinds of crazy headlines. But then he gets totally shocked when Agee walks in and is like, "Hey, Chris, you sleepwalking again? You okay, buddy?" This freaks him out and he runs the hell out of there. And that's how we get to the beginning of the show. So it's a really cool intro. They answered a lot of questions and then they set up the big plot device of what's going to happen. So very cool intro, which leads into the new song intro. And I don't like this one as much as the first season. Maybe it'll grow on me more. I actually am not real familiar with this band. I guess a lot of people like them, and I have no problem with the music. I just don't know the song, but the choreography and stuff is pretty cool in this one. They got different people in there doing it. Some of the same people from the first time who are going to be in this again. And you got Michael Rooker in there. You got all these different people, who are new to the show. Frank Grillo, and they do a crazy dance, and then they end up on the floor in a big pile. And of course, you got to have Eagly strutting his stuff on top. So, really cool intro. Like I said, not quite as good for me as season 1, but I like it. I mean, I like the consistency. It's sort of like reminds me of the Cosby Show. It used to be a different song each time, and they were doing stuff. So it kind of reminds me of that. First episode, The Ties That Grind, Chapter 1. We get into the relationship that Adebayo and Chris has is really cool. They're close and honest with each other, and I like that. I think they have a really good chemistry together, and it'd be interesting to see what keeps going on with this. Adebayo is going through a lot of hardships. Everybody's going through hardships since they saved the world, which is crazy. But they're all going through their own individual life hurdles, so to speak. And in this scene, Adebayo is taking Chris to try out for the Justice League for an interview. And this is something that we saw in the trailers. And I wish they hadn't shown this in the trailers, because it's really funny. And it's one of those things that, had they not shown it, it would have been cool to see the Justice Gang just show up out of the blue and be the ones that he was going to see. So once again, trailers kind of ruin the surprise and ruin the effect of why they're there in the first place. I feel like, it's like Red Hulk. That was so much better for people who didn't see the commercials and didn't see the trailers. But this scene was really funny. He can hear everything that's going on back and forth behind the glass, and they're just, talking mad shit about him. And it turns out, they realize he can hear, and Maxwell Lord, Shawn Gunn, has this hilarious line where he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have told that White Rabbit. I must have mentioned her camel toe 30 times." So pretty funny scene. It was really cool to see. It really brings the impact of how bad Chris's life is going. Even after saving the world, nobody respects him. These guys just do not respect him. Nobody respects him at all. He doesn't get any kind of love, and he's just having a rough time. So this sets up the mental hurdles that he's going through right away, and I like that. Then we go to see Harcourt, and she's having her own set of problems. She's, being pretty much like fired from everything. She can't work anywhere right now, and they believe it's because Amanda Waller is blacklisting her, and not allowing her to get jobs that she's trying to get. She's the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, DIA, DHS. She's trying to get all these positions, and nobody wants her around, for one reason or the other. In this case, this guy blames her toxic masculinity, which is hilarious, and it opens up a whole crazy interaction between the two of them. it's a really great scene, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. But she is a wreck. She beats the shit out of her car. Her knuckles are bleeding. She doesn't know how to handle this kind of. She's been a trained killer essentially her entire life, and now they just don't want her to do that. And it's pretty crazy, So she's going through a lot of emotions as well. And in the next it cuts to Chris visiting her and trying, just seeing how she's going. Helps her with her hand, and apparently, from what we saw in the last season, there was a little bit of a spark there at the end. Now we don't know if that was just because she was in the hospital, but we don't know what's happened since that hand grab, the hand touch moment in season 1 in the hospital to now. But we do find out that apparently they had gone on a boat recently. She doesn't even want to go on the boat, but Chris was like, oh, it's beautiful out there, and they got drunk on the boat, and something happened. We don't know. It doesn't exactly explain. We can all use our imaginations, but it's not like they flat out tell us what it was that happened. We don't know if maybe it was just another hand to hold moment. We don't know. Maybe it was just a kiss. Maybe they had sex. We don't know exactly. So she tells Chris off, kind of, like, it was just a thing. We don't need to do that. It was a mistake, and that kind of crushes him. He's going through a lot right now, and he needed the connection, and she's just another person rejecting him. Just more rejection, more disrespect. And so he goes back to his house, starts doing a bunch of drugs. He, smokes out of this bong, which I've been hearing all these interview things where they were saying how that John Cena had never used a bong before, and so he didn't know how it works, and he had to get the people on set to teach him how to do it because he wanted to make sure it looked believable. And I think that's pretty wild because, looking at the guy's physical nature, it kind of makes sense that he's never done anything like that. So, but he goes full in. He's got a bag for a rainy day. I guess, he's going to do some skiing, and he goes full in, and he starts having this orgy party, which was pretty wild. Definitely wasn't expecting that. And yeah, this, by the way, is a TVMA. It is hard R, which makes me question as to whether or not, like, how they're going to be able to do. I don't know how much of the show is going to tie in for future stuff. Like, so in this show, we're talking about things that happen, but maybe it doesn't set anything up that needs to be answered later on, because they've talked about how they don't want to do the same thing as Marvel, where homework was needed all the time. But immediately in this show, we talk about Luther, and we talk about the problem with having these portals and stuff like that. So. And we got the Justice Gang. So there's already things being mentioned, but that was just if you did the Superman homework. So maybe it won't go the other way. Maybe the next movie you won't have to have watched Peacemaker, but then the next season of some show might mention that movie. Maybe that's the way they're going to handle it. I'm not really sure, but if they don't, it's going to be a problem because a show like this is definitely not accessible for everybody. First there's the subscription, but that's not really a huge thing. But being that it's TVMA, unless your parents are very free-spirited, they're probably not going to let kids watch this because it's pretty, it's pretty intense. And it's a great show still, but that's something to think about with how many people are going to be able to be included on the whole story. So I'll be interested in seeing how they navigate that. It should be interesting. I do know that James Gunn likes to do this kind of stuff. He likes doing edgy stuff. So, I would expect more stuff to be edgy. But then, like Clayface, I don't know how much that's going to tie in, or if that's going to be Elseworlds. But I think that's supposed to be rated R also. So I just don't know if everybody's going to be able to be included in this adventure that is the DCU. So we'll see how that works out. See if it's not fully inclusive or not, or I don't know. I don't know how they're going to handle it. I mean, but we see that John Economos is been watching John Cena. He's been watching Chris. He's been watching Peacemaker for Argos, which is now run by Frank Grillo's character, Rick Flag Sr. He's got a thing against Peacemaker because he killed his son in Suicide Squad movie. There's a little bit of a conflict of interest going on in that, but John is keeping an eye on Chris, and he ends up seeing him opening this door with this portal, and he takes a picture, and he kind of lies about it to Rick Flag. He says that nothing's going on weird, and even though he says that, Rick Flag doesn't believe him and says we need to make this Argos Priority 1 emergency. Sol Rodriguez, who plays Sasha Bordeaux, her character kind of makes this face like she looks like she's doubting the intentions of Rick Flag. She's like, it feels a little weird that you're making this Priority 1. They didn't even say there's an issue. He also asked for another agent to watch over John Economos. There's some trust issues going around in Argos, which is kind of always the case. They're a mess. Then we cut back to Peacemaker, who is wandering around in the quantum storage area, and he's drunk and wasted, and he's hanging out in there, and it's really, it's huge. It's amazing how big it is. Eagly's flying around in there, and he's wandering around, and he goes back to the door because, he's got this glimpse of this place that in this world, he is a hero. So he goes in here, and he's really looking around now. He sees Agee's helmet, but it's blue version here. He's looking around outside, and then his brother pulls up. This is crazy for him because in the previous season, he has a lot of emotional baggage from accidentally killing his brother. His brother had like a seizure or something when his dad was forcing them to fight. It was an accident, but his father always blamed him for it, and he always blamed himself. In fact, his father blamed him for pretty much everything. But in this world, his father's kind to him and loves him, and the three of them get along really well. And there's a weird dynamic where, Agee says that, life would have been easier without Chris, but it would be, and then the brother says, but it would be half as much fun or something like that. So I guess he's kind of makes mistakes or something. I don't know. We'll see how that translates later on. But it's just this heartfelt moment where he just is. He feels you see the gears spinning in his head where, he's like, well, how is this happening? He's taking it all in, but then also, just like he's feeling the love, and it's like it's playing tricks with his mind, and it's a pretty heavy scene. And I'll tell you, John Cena can act. Anybody who questions his ability, watch these shows. The guy is very good, and he pulls off so much emotion with the expressions and the way he delivers lines and stuff that, he's up there. No joke. John Cena can act. But then we cut to back to Harcourt to see how she's dealing with her emotional stress, and she's gone into this bar just looking to fuck around and find out. She comes in here looking to start trouble. She finds it immediately, talks smack to these guys. She's got some great one-liners about this guy's looks and about him that were pretty classic. She does all kinds of Black Widow acrobatics and just kicks the shit out of these guys. So much up to a point, where she kind of gets caught off guard. But before that, she's just going apeshit berserker mode on these guys, and it is really cool to watch. It's a great fight scene, watching her dismantle all these guys in the pub. And then finally, though, one of them gets the best of her, and then they all kick her while she's down, and they kick her out of the bar. She's lucky she didn't end up dead, the way she was. I mean, the pain she was inflicting on them. If they had returned that kind of pain, like she'd probably be dead because she was putting some hurt on. So then we go back to the scene with the guys. Yeah, so the brother, I mean, they just have a great time. They love each other. There's this crazy moment where Agee grabs his ear as he's walking out of the room and telling both guys that he loves them, both brothers. And, they're like, he's like, I love you too. And then John, or Chris, he says to his brother, I love you. And he says, "Oh, what are you, weirdo? I love you too." Or something like along those lines. And it just cuts through him. He's like, "Wow, this is what it feels like to be loved." So he's got that going for him in this world. So then we get to where John Economos, he goes to Adebayo, and he's wants her assistance to know what he should do. And it opens up a weird thing with the dynamic of everybody's friendship because, for whatever reason, John has sort of grown apart from Peacemaker. Originally after the first season, it seemed like they'd all kind of gotten close together, but I guess they've grown apart at this point because Adebayo says, he's your friend. And, John's just kind of like, well, I mean, I wouldn't say friend, or something along those lines. And it's just a kind of a weird way for him to treat Peacemaker after everything they went through. But it was kind of weird that he acted that way. And long run, he just wants Adebayo to be the one to go check out Chris and make sure what's going on and ask him what the deal is with the portal door. So she's gonna do that, and that's cool. But then we come back to Peacemaker. He's walking through the bedroom of his alternate self, who, by the way, the father and the brother said was supposed to be in Bloodhaven, and they pronounced it Bloodhaven, which I thought was pretty weird, wild, because I think it does have the two little dots, but I've always said Bloodhaven, and yeah, I don't know if anybody is a big Batman Nightwing fan. Like, let me know, how did you think it was pronounced? Because I thought it was always Bloodhaven. When you go through his room here, there's all kinds of different stuff that's not quite right. The names of the bands and stuff. Pour some honey on me instead of pour some sugar on me for the Def Leppard poster. So everything's a little bit different. So maybe that's why they pronounce it that way, is just kind of to make that point a little more. Yeah, in this world, everything's different, and Chris is with Harcourt. They're an item. Apparently they were together, and I guess they're not now because the brother said something about he blew it with that person and he should really rekindle that relationship. They mentioned that she's dating some kind of jarhead. Some people are theorizing that it could be Rick Flag Jr., which I think would be pretty fun and wild, and that would be a hell of a twist if in this universe Rick Flag Jr. was alive and he was going to be part of this love triangle with Harcourt and Peacemaker. That would be pretty wild, and it would open up a lot of conflict for Rick Flag Sr. If that gets back to, if he gets to this world and sees his son or something like that. There's all kinds of shenanigans that could happen because of that. So I'm excited to see where they go with that. Who is the jarhead? Right? That's the question. Yeah, look at him looking all happy. And I do wonder also, is Peacemaker in this world, is he an asshole? Is he cool? Because, our Peacemaker, Peacemaker 1, he's grown a lot, and he's become like this better human being. He's a better human being than he was at the beginning of Peacemaker 1, season 1. So I'm really interested to see from other characters what this Peacemaker 2, what he was all about. I'm sure we'll find out more. Right away, we find out that he has very little patience or desire to talk to a person who he finds in his house that looks just like him. So he finds Peacemaker here, and he immediately pulls out his gun to shoot him. When Chris fights back, he gets away into the storage unit, And then they have this all-out brawl where our Peacemaker is just getting his ass kicked by this improved version of Peacemaker, who's got a much better suit, better technology. It looks like he's got a jetpack that works. He's kicking his ass, really. He takes a hell of a beating in this. He's got this Wolverine spike, right? And he's about to kill him when Chris kind of remembers the jetpack, saw how he used it. He hits the button on his chest, and he flies up into this well-placed spike on the ceiling that just happens to be there, which is convenient, or not, depending on how you look at it, because this impales him and he dies. So right off the bat in the first episode, our Peacemaker has killed the new Peacemaker. And that's pretty crazy. That's a big what the hell. So now he's got to deal with that, you know? And he comes down and just, again, the acting. John Cena's acting is so great. I mean, not only is he dead here, but he's also, I mean, the look on his face and the feelings that are going through his head, he's really good. I think a lot of people should take note of that. But that's how the episode ends, and then we get this follow-up post-credit scene where it's from earlier in the show when Peacemaker was showing up at Harcourt's, and they just kind of go off on 30 Seconds to Mars. I mean, he makes fun of Spin Doctors and 30 Seconds to Mars, but she's like, you can't really include them together. I don't know if that's just a friendly jab or if he really dislikes Jared Leto and 30 Seconds. I'm not sure. I mean, Jared Leto was in the original Suicide Squad. He was not in the Suicide Squad, though. So I don't know. Maybe there's some bad blood there between with the DC universe. I don't know if James Gunn's making a dig at him. I don't know. I'd be interested to see what everybody thinks about that. Also, then at the end of the episode, they have this whole like special feature where James Gunn talks about the show and stuff, which is really cool. I think that's nice. He's also doing the podcast thing where he's going to be talking about episodes. But I think that for people who aren't going to make it to YouTube, this is a really cool way to kind of give a little behind the scenes information for people who are just watching on HBO. So, yeah, I think this was a really good show so far. I'm really liking. I mean, the acting is great. The characters are all really good. I'm excited to see more. I'm glad we got some Eagly in there. I hope we get more Vigilante in the next episode. We only had a little bit of Vigilante talking to Economos. I have a lot of questions about this other new universe and who are the main heroes and characters. Who are the other heroes and stuff in this universe? Are there other heroes? Is it just the top trio? I'm curious who is that alien? Why does he keep putting rats in the can and incinerating them? So many questions that I'm sure will get answered. But as of now, I'm going to give this 4.5 Wolverine popcorn buckets out of 5. And this is just the first episode, so that could change. I don't know if I'll rate every episode. I guess I'll rate every episode, then I'll give a rating at the end of the whole series as a whole. But I think that this was a really good, strong opening, and it did a lot to make me want to see more. After watching the first episode, are you excited for what's coming up? Are you already done with it? Do you hope that it's not tied to the rest of the universe at all? I don't know. What do you think about this? Let me know in the comments, and have a great day.